Tulsi Gabbard's report on 2016 election interference means blank.
Ooh, baby.
Before we get into your answers,
Okay.
perhaps this calls for a little bit of a recap.
Okay.
So Tulsi Gabbard recently declassified a slew of documents, and she is claiming that the Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for the eventual FBI investigation into whether or not Donald Trump colluded with the Russians in order to win the 2016 election. There are a couple of different claims being made across the Trump administration, which is why it's important to be really technical about, so some of what Gabbard has said is not correct in my view. She has said that even though the Russians tried to interfere, there's no evidence that they actually did. I think that's like a bit of a stretch. But the main claim here is that despite having exculpatory evidence about Trump's involvement, the Obama administration intelligence community was leaking and was setting the stage to have, to have a reason for there being the both legal and media onslaught accusing Trump of collaborating with the Russians to win 2016. And I'm going to say that this report means that Trump is keeping a promise to clean out the deep state. Christian, I want your take because I want to know if you think this matters.
T, that was a good analysis, a breakdown of this declassified report that Gabbard put out last Friday. And I don't want to do this, but you're wrong. You're 100% wrong, okay? This report shows that Donald Trump is running scared from Jeffrey Epstein. First of all, there is no new information in this report, as evidenced by the Mueller report the first time around, the 2020 Redux report before Donald Trump got out of office about the 2016 election. We know that the intelligence community under the Obama administration was trying to link Donald Trump to Russia. We already know that. The whole Russia dossier, Peter Strzok, shout out, haven't heard that name in years. So there's nothing new here. It's interesting to me that the timing of this, published Friday, a report which clearly took weeks, if not months, to put together and drive their analysis and redact all the names, all this stuff. There's no possible way they just happened to time it up exactly when Donald Trump needs the MAGA public to look away from the Wall Street Journal report on this letter that he sent Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. Look, the idea that Donald Trump is still trying to relitigate the 2016 election after he's lost another one and won another one after that is ludicrous to me. This impacts quite literally no one. This doesn't help anyone in the slightest. And all it does is try and throw red meat at the MAGA voters again, who have shown, polling notwithstanding, they are not happy with the answers that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and everybody over at DOJ and FBI and even the White House are giving about what they had told us was a clear conspiracy carried out to protect the most powerful people in the country at the damage and, while victimizing literal children. They've told us these pedophiles and these sex criminals are running this cabal and Hillary's involved and whoever is involved, and that when they're in office, they're going to prosecute and these people are going to jail. And then you pull the rug out from your voters and they're rightfully mad, okay? So this is hiding the ball. This is a nothing burger. And I do think it's a clear sign that Donald Trump, despite what he's saying, despite Caroline Leavitt claiming that no one outside of the Beltway cares about Jeffrey Epstein anymore, that is objectively false. They are trying to move on because it's damaging to Donald Trump, even if he's not actually named in this client list that's may or may not be floating out there. He's lost the trust of his coalition, and he needs to bring those people back into the fold. Otherwise, it's going to be murder for Republicans in the midterms, and that negatively impacts how he can govern for his last 2 years in office.
You're right that Russiagate is not I don't think Russiagate, even if you want to call it draining the swamp, it is not a top 20 issue for Trump voters. Neither is Jeffrey Epstein. Honestly, I think all of this has to do with how terminally online we are And the reason why I'm saying this is a campaign promise that was made and is now being kept, the reason why I say that is because in order to trust the FBI DOJ memo about Jeffrey Epstein saying, we believe he killed himself, in order to trust them about anything, you need to unpack this. You need to show that the people that that had evidence, part of the documents are quite damning, showing after Trump won initially, the DNI found Russia's attempts to influence the election, they didn't work, no Trump involvement, and then contradicting themselves days later in, all hands meetings in order to fabricate a narrative to exonerate Hillary Clinton and the fact that she was a terrible candidate. This should not be something that Donald Trump spends all of his time talking about. That is, salience matters. And I think a part of the reason why this presidency is going so well is because he's not on Twitter anymore, right? So his diehard fans get to check out his truth socials, investors get to check out his truth socials, but normal people only see him talking. And frankly, he sounds way less insane when he talks than when he tweets. That's
true.
True of all of us, I think, right? But,
yeah.
So in order to trust anything that the FBI says, be it Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, there were no unindicted co-conspirators outside of the names that have already been named, you need to make sure that you don't have Jim Clapper and, all Jim Comey and all the Jims, really, secretly behind the scenes, thwarting the president's agenda and thwarting the pursuit of truth and justice. If you look at Donald Trump's polling in, the last few weeks, it really has not been that affected by the Epstein stuff. Frankly, tariffs and inflation are still making more of an impact in the polls, even though inflation is now, at 2%, close to 2%. We had last month where it was below 2%, but it's hard to say, what one fixed number. But point is, inflation going well. But the trade stuff people still really care about, right?
Without a doubt, yeah.
I keep on hearing from Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and just those trying to really hijack MAGA that they're the base because the base was running on taking everything away from the globalists and the elites, and I get they just want to say the Jews. Donald Trump's base are those working class folks that either voted for Barack Obama or sat out that election because they weren't going to vote for a Bain Capital guy because they wanted a builder, someone that wants to bring back American greatness. And part of that means, you don't want to have massive tariff-induced inflation. You want to have good trade deals that don't insanely jack up consumer prices. Right now, there's no evidence of that happening with the 10% tariffs, but we'll see what happens after the ever-moving deadline.
Without a doubt.
And so it's if this is the DNI's job, and there should be focus on this, this should not be what the president is focusing on. So if Trump obsesses over this, if this just becomes the same thing as his January 6th, 2020 obsession, that's bad. But if it's just about cleaning house in the intel community, I'm all for it, and I think the base will be too.